Welcome to the Mies Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Sharkey, the founder and CEO of Mies, the culinary operating system for food professionals. On the show, I'll be interviewing world-class entrepreneurs in the food space that are shifting the paradigm of how we innovate and operate in our industry. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy the show. My guest today is back in the States after being overseas for over a decade, Chef Joey Sergentakis. Joey was most recently, prior to getting back in the States, the corporate executive chef for C'est La Vie. They're based in Singapore with restaurants all around the world, like Taipei and Tokyo and Dubai. And obviously it's incredible food because it was Joey. But fun fact, they also were known for having the most expensive dinner on the planet. It was like a $2 million dinner. He was like flying by helicopter, and there's like diamond chopsticks and Baleen oysters, and you get like a 2-carat diamond ring called the Jane Seymour. Anyways, really, really opulent experience. And Joey ran the restaurants for, all around the world. And prior to that, he worked for the SWIRE Group and Gray Kunz, which is how I first got to know Joey. He was running Gray's restaurants in Hong Kong. He also ran Mr. and Miss Fox. He spent some time working for Philippe Rochat in Switzerland. And before heading overseas, he worked for Chef Daniel Boulud at Restaurant Daniel. So obviously an incredible pedigree. And Joey and I actually never met in person prior to this podcast, though we've heard about each other and talked to each other many times over the years, especially, unfortunately, once Chef Gray passed away, we spent more time just reminiscing and talking about just how incredible Chef was and his influence on the world. So we talk a lot about that today. And we also talk about Joey's new restaurant, Boschetto, and he just opened a second restaurant called Allendale Social. So he's back in his home state of New Jersey, crushing it, opening a bunch of incredible restaurants. And this was just a really fun conversation, just to reminisce about the past, that even though we didn't spend it together, we had a lot of similarities and acquaintances that we wanted to talk about, and talked a lot about his new restaurant and his approach to casual Italian cuisine, which is a big departure from what he was doing prior, cooking a lot of Southeast Asian cuisine. Anyways, he's an incredible guy, really humble, super talented. I had a great time. And as always, I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I did. We're live, man.
All right, cool. Cool.
Good to see you, dude.
Yeah, you too.
Welcome to the Mies Podcast.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I can't believe we never met in person before,
I know.
by the way.
I know. It's crazy because, as you know, I worked with Chef Gray, and he's talking about the team in New York, and Sharky was always one of the names he always brought up. A few others. So
while you were
great. Yeah.
Well, I think for the audience, maybe just like a little background on how you got here, like how you got to where you are today, because you've worked for some incredible chefs. You worked a bunch overseas, which we're going to talk about, but maybe just a little wind up of your background.
Yeah, sure. I started off in New York. I went from New York with Danielle.
You were at Restaurant Danielle, right?
I was at Restaurant Danielle.
For a few years, right?
Yep. Yeah. So I worked a couple stations there. I was quite young. And, after working there, I really wanted to do something different. I wanted to work overseas. That was kind of a big goal of mine.
Why?
Well, I felt like at that time I was just working at, it was one of the best restaurants in the country for sure at that time. And, obviously it still is. But, I was at a point where I'm like, okay, what am I going to do next? And there's a lot of great chefs in New York and young, aspiring chefs. And I'm like, what's going to really give me something different, a different kind of perspective of cooking? It's time. It's a good time for me to do something like that.
Yeah. Is that your cook?
Yeah.
A good voice.
No, that's one of the waiters. We have a great team of singers.
Yeah. But by the way, we're at your restaurant, Boschetto, in Montclair. So there might be some background noise.
Yeah. There could be some singing in the background.
Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah.
So you were at Danielle for 3 years. And then how did you end up getting overseas?
So my cousin married John Rella, who was a chef that used to work for Chef Gray at Les Penaz. And before working at Danielle, I worked with Chef John Rella at Union Club in New York City on 69th.
Yeah.
And Park Avenue. And spent a few years with him. He actually helped me to work with Danielle because Fabricio is the corporate chef for Danielle.
Yep.
We kind of got connected. I got there and I kind of worked my way up in the team. And I worked there for a few years. Chef John Rella, obviously working, with Gray Kunz at Les Penaz. They had a very close relationship. And through that, I was able to meet Chef Gray. And I staged at the opening part of Cafe Gray, New York.
Yep.
And did a lot of stages there. I was 19 years old. I was quite
That's
young.
so crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like we must have
No, we
crossed
must have
paths.
seen each other somehow. I was that young guy doing, shit work in the corner, peeling shallots and stuff.
Yep. John really introed you to Kunz, and then you staged at Cafe Gray. We must have met, although, I must have been 23, 24 at that time, so I wasn't that much older than you were. So we were both, out of our minds. But so after you staged at Cafe Gray, that's when you then went to Daniel?
No, yeah. Then I went to Daniel. Then I worked at Daniel. And then after working at Daniel, as I said, I really wanted to go to Europe, looking at all the 3 Michelin star restaurants in France and Switzerland and in Spain and stuff. I'm thinking, where can I go? And I tried, I wrote a bunch of emails and letters and stuff to different chefs.
Was there one in particular restaurant you really want to go to?
Not really. There's a bunch. And I connected with Chef Gray, and he was like, you interested in going to work with Rochat in Switzerland? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Can you help me? So he called the team, called Frank Giovannini. I don't know if you know Frank. At the time, he was the sous chef there. Now he's actually running the restaurant. But he used to work at L'Espinasse as well. So he called them, and then I went there.
So the first place you went overseas was for Philippe Rochat?
Yeah, for Philippe Rochat.
And then they came over to work to do like collab with us at Cafe Gray.
Yeah.
I had just left at that time. But,
oh, really? Yeah, that was way before I went out there. But yeah, I heard a lot of stories about it. I saw a lot of photos. It was really cool.
Yeah.
They
what was it like working for Rochat?
Oh, it was incredible. I mean, it was such a unique experience for me. That restaurant, it was very unique. It was very true to the classics. And I learned a lot about a lot of different techniques. And same thing with Danielle,
Yep. What town? What's
Crissier. In Crissier.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like maybe 40 minutes from Geneva.
Yep.
It was an incredible experience. I mean, in that team with that brigade. And actually when I went there, it was the old kitchen.
It's crazy how many chefs came through Freddy's a day too.
I know.
It's funny. That's how not how I first learned about Kunz, but I was working at Boulud before I went to work for Kunz. He also worked for Girardet.
Oh, I didn't know that.
At least that's what I was told. But I'm pretty sure I saw a picture of both of them, so pretty sure he did. And I mean, it's funny because you look at all the chefs that came through Girardet, and then same thing with Kunz.
Yeah.
So many incredible chefs.
I know.
Carmelini and Rocco and Floyd. And, I mean, just so many that
I know.
Like they just produce great chefs.
I know.
Did you travel a lot around Switzerland when you were there?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, so I was there for 3 months. The plan for me was 3 months stage and then go back to America. Packed up for 3 months. While I was out there, I kept in touch with Chef Gray. He was, checked in on me a few times. And one day he calls me. He's like, "Do you want to come to Hong Kong? I'm opening a restaurant in Hong Kong." And I was like, "Sure." 25. I left America to get experience. One of the better experiences to go to Hong Kong with Chef Gray and open up a restaurant. So I accepted it, the role. And then there was a bit of a delay in the process. So after 3 months, I went to France. So a friend of mine, my friend Wilford, he and I worked together at Daniel. He was the chef at a restaurant called Le Bastide de Moussier. It's a Alain Ducasse restaurant in the south of France. And I was like, Wilford, I got some time. So I spent a few months there with him as well. So that was a great experience. Yeah, it's a beautiful restaurant in the middle of a mountain in the south of France. I mean, every day they change the menu. The menu is very small, about 3 or 4 courses. And it was incredible.
Anything that like really comes to mind that you saw or made or like sticks with you?
For me, it was mind blowing. I was a young kid with aspirations to be a chef. And then all of a sudden I find myself in the middle of Provence.
Yeah.
Going to work, like walking down the street and it's like, you got rosemary on, it's really, you're in something really special, you know? And I knew that. And, you go to the restaurant and they had this huge wood fire oven that they're roasting chicken and it's just very, very classic and done right, you know?
Was there a moment that I'm curious if you had like a moment when you realized, oh yeah, I want to be a chef?
Well, big inspiration for me was meeting John Rella.
Yeah.
So that was during a period of time when I was in culinary school and, I wanted to be a chef. And my cousin, at the time they were dating, meets this chef and who's, worked for Chef Gray Kunz. He was in New York City doing some fantastic things.
We're in a restaurant, so in case any of this doesn't get edited, it's because back and forth the cooks are doing their job and listening to music. But we were just talking about like what inspired you to start cooking. 'Cause I think about like, I went to culinary school. I don't think it like clicked yet. Like, oh yeah, I want to go work in incredible kitchens. It wasn't until like I started working at this Michelin star restaurant in Norway. And just like, I still remember like 2 or 3 things that I was like, holy shit. Yeah, this is what I want to do the first time. Like I remember them like confying fennel and then caramelizing it on a plancha and like this like celery puree and then like getting whole scallops in. And I was like, I still to this day remember these things that we did. Yeah. That are like the reason why I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Although now I'm doing something else. But was there any like food or dishes or things that you saw like that like sparked it?
Yeah, I think, John Rella, who I mentioned before, was a big inspiration for me. When I was in culinary school, so my cousin, started dating him. He was the chef of the yacht club. The Union Club at the time. And he was running this, incredible outlet, doing really great things. And, meeting him and talking to him was really inspiring. Really inspiring for me. Like he was telling me stories about L'Espinasse and, putting a lot of perspective on what he does every day. And I was like very intrigued by all of that. So I started to dig in a little bit further, getting into, cookbooks and, all these different chefs in New York City and learning about Letters to a Young Chef from, Daniel Boulud and reading all these different books. I read The Fourth Star, which was a story about that, working in the kitchen at Daniel. Yep. And, I really submerged myself into it. My family was always in hospitality. My father was a chef. He's Greek, so he was a chef at a diner, obviously. Yeah. So, that's what they do.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not a chef.
Yeah. He was working in diners. My mom was a waitress. That's kind of how they met each other. And then he had a produce business. So growing up, my first job was in a restaurant. And then I've never worked anything outside of restaurants, diners, and pizzerias and stuff crazy. Like that. Yeah. So I started very young.
So was that diner was it like a Greek diner?
It was a very famous one. Del Rio Diner and Vegas Diner in Brooklyn. Wow. Yeah. So that's what my father did. He was living, he lived in Greece. He moved to America.
What part of Greece?
Crete.
Nice. Yeah. Have you spent time in Greece?
Yeah, in Crete. Nice. Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, I haven't been, man.
Yeah.
So then you ended up in Hong Kong and then Singapore, which we're going to talk about, but like, what was it like living there? I mean, independent of like cooking, like what was it like living in?
Insane, man. It was amazing. I mean, I loved it. I remember arriving in Hong Kong with, first of all, like as I mentioned, I was supposed to spend 3 months in Switzerland and then go back to America. So I came with suitcases of like winter clothes. I got to Hong Kong and it was like super hot. Yep. What the fuck am I going to do? It was just such a great experience for me. I had no idea what I was going to expect. I had no idea. I didn't know anything about Hong Kong, really.
How long were you there for?
In total, 7 years.
What did you do on your time off?
Oh, I mean, I met a lot of friends. It was an inspiring spot because when I got there, working with Chef Gray, he had a very open mind towards ingredients and products from different areas, and especially being in Hong Kong. Yeah. So we embraced that a lot, and I just wanted to continue to further my knowledge on Asian cuisine. So being out there, I would go to restaurants and go to the market and buy ingredients that I had no idea what I was doing with. I would talk to the lady in the market that I was buying her from. I said, what do you do with it?
Were you learning the language?
Learned a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very good. I'm very good with like kitchen Cantonese. I can count. I can, talk and like,
And can you like communicate at the markets as well?
Oh, yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. I was good with that.
So any like particular cultural things that you remember that are just super different from living here?
Yeah. I mean, in the beginning, it was a cultural shock, but eventually it was very comfortable.
What were some of the shocks? Like, what are the things
I mean, just arriving in Hong Kong, you never see anything like it. All the buildings are really close. It felt like everything's on top of you. There's a lot of people in the street. The ingredients, the language, the culture, the way people talk to each other. In the beginning, it's almost like, it's like people going to New York. It's very aggressive. Yeah. But once you understand, like New Yorkers, and you understand people in Hong Kong, you're like, wow, this is amazing. And I have so many close friends that even to today I talk to every day that are, living in Hong Kong and checking out, seeing what they're doing and everything. But when I was in Asia in general, I had a lot of experiences in different cultures that to this day is just, it's like I went from Hong Kong to Singapore to, Malaysia, Sri Lanka, which I'm kind of fast forwarding a little bit towards the end of, my experience in Asia. But each country I've been to, each country like had their own kind of culture and type of people.
I think one thing I was curious about is like the kitchens in those countries, and I don't know how much of like the political system has an influence or just socioeconomical, but like, is the culture in working in those kitchens different from the culture in the States?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, what's different about it?
I mean, it's hard to say. I think each restaurant, no matter which country you're in, you always have, those people that are just there for the money.
Yeah.
And you always have those people that are really, that have this like love and drive to be a better chef and to learn and everything. And that's one thing you'll find in every country in the world, I feel like. You know what I mean? You kind of have to weave your way through. Yeah,
you get the mix of the missionaries and the people that actually...
It's always part of it,
Is there a big like culinary scene of like people like, like bouncing ideas off each other in Hong Kong?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the areas where I went to and where I was working were like, some of the biggest cities.
Yeah.
So you're always going to have lots of competition and you're always going to have a lot of talent there, So there was a great community in each one of these locations, especially in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
I mean, Hong Kong, when I first got there, it was not what it is today. There was a handful of great restaurants. Now it's a city full of great restaurants. So, I was there through that entire transition where there was like, there was no, there weren't those, there was the hotel restaurants. Now there's restaurants on the streets, it's independent restaurants, So.
Is it primarily like people from outside of China that are opening restaurants? And
I guess the Western restaurants, yes. But you have some incredible like Cantonese restaurants in Hong Kong that are run by local Cantonese chefs and those are incredible. And those are some of the best restaurants in that city as well.
Yeah.
But then you have, chefs from Europe, countries like Hong Kong and Singapore, and they set up incredible restaurants.
Yeah. In Hong Kong, you were at what was called Cafe Gray Deluxe.
Yep.
Which I was always curious that I asked Gray a number of times. He didn't really have a good answer for it. Because we had Cafe Gray, and the menu was pretty, similar.
Yeah,
a lot of it was, in the opening for sure. But I mean, it seems like it was just an extension of Cafe Gray. But was the idea for it to be more high end than the one in New York?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so. That was definitely not. That was definitely nothing that was ever discussed. I mean, it was Cafe Gray, but in Hong Kong. The only thing I would say would probably be different, and I've only done stages at Cafe Gray New York, but I think it was probably, I wouldn't say it was more Asian, but we were utilizing a lot of local products.
Yeah.
So it's naturally, we were using ingredients like yam mok choy and different types of...
What's that?
Yam mok choy. It's like it's a type of lettuce.
Yeah, I figured it was like some sort of choy.
Yeah. It's like, it looks like romaine lettuce, but a little bit different, a little more green, not, no white in the middle, kind of like how romaine is. Or yellow, and it's got and you saute it.
Oh yes, you cook it.
It's amazing. It's probably one of my favorites.
It's funny because I love grilled romaine better than than just raw romaine. Anyways, you had a little class. Did you guys have like the truffle soup or the truffle bouillon?
Yeah, of course.
Nobody does.
I know.
No one does truffles like Kunz.
I know.
No one. I say all the time. I don't know if it's controversial, but there's not a chef. There's not one restaurant I ever have been at ever. And I've been to all the 3-star Michelin and 4-star New York. Nobody does it like Kunz.
I know.
The way that it's really just the preserving of those black truffles.
I know.
I mean, it's, like port, Madeira, salt, but like when he preserves those truffles, that juice is like,
I know.
It's like fucking gold.
There is one other restaurant.
Oh, really?
Which I found out about. Rochat.
Well, he probably learned it. He probably learned it from there. I would imagine, like, if you go, I never ate at Rochat. I never ate Girodet's spot. I imagine probably he probably got it.
It was incredible for me to see the parallel between the two restaurants because there's obviously a lot of inspiration that Chef Gray got from Girodet. It was interesting because they cooked like similar, obviously, because he worked with for him. You know? going back to Chef Gray's history, after Girardet, he went to Hong Kong and then went to New York. So you kind of saw a lot of that Asian and, Cantonese influence into the cuisine that he did at Esplanade. That was the difference, I think, in the two.
But it's, like everywhere you eat, other than maybe Rochat and maybe there's other places, but like something you just put on top of it afterwards. You shave white truffle, you shave black truffle, maybe you saute the truffle, maybe you like stuff it with something, but it's, when he like crashes.
Yeah.
The basic premise for anybody that hasn't, eaten or cooked for Kunz is, these preserved truffles. Yeah. Typically you dice them, saute them, little shallots, crash some chicken stock, crash pork, crash Madeira, maybe a little cream or veal stock.
Yeah.
That like crashing of that every time and then finishing with, with the truffle juices, like it's the dish is truffle instead of like the dish is something else with truffle on top.
The dish is truffle. That's good
having like literally, it's like the truffle soup. It's got a purple hue to it.
Yep.
Yeah, there's nowhere else that really does it that way. I tend to like Chef Wiley came to our team summit that we did last year. We do a team summit for Mies every year, and Wiley did like this talk. We did like a little fireside chat. I gave him a couple gifts, and one was just a jar of preserved truffles. I was like, put this on the pizza, man.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you worked for Kunz for 7 years in Hong Kong. Mm-hmm. And then how did you end up in Singapore?
After working with him at Cafe Gray, actually, I opened up a restaurant called Mr. and Mrs. Fox in Hong Kong as well, with the same company, SWIRE.
Oh, really?
So, So SWIRE, they're the company that opened up the Upper House Hotel in Hong Kong, which brought me out to Hong Kong in the first place with Chef Gray. After working with him for a while, I was like, I wanted to do something. I wanted to do a restaurant on my own kind of. They invited me to open a restaurant with them. So I opened this restaurant. It was great. Mr. and Mrs. Fox. It was in Quarry Bay in Hong Kong. Did really well. 12,000 square foot kind of steakhouse. Yeah, it was huge. 3 floors. We won a lot of accolades. Did really well. And then with that, I kind of took a role overseeing a few projects that SWIRE did. One was in Miami. I opened up Sugar, which is on the rooftop of East Hotel. And I oversaw another restaurant that they had called The Continental, which was kind of this like grand cafe, like really interesting restaurant. It was like an all day.
Did you live in Miami or did you stay there temporarily?
Stay there temporarily.
Yeah.
So
do you have kids by that point?
Yes. Well, 1. Yeah. No, 2. 2 were born in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your kids are technically, like did they have dual nationality? Or dual citizenship?
No, they don't. Well, no, sorry. They do.
Yeah.
Through the Indonesian. My wife is Indonesian.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So your kids are
Indonesian American.
They have Chinese and Indonesian passports or Chinese and American?
Indonesian American.
Wow.
So I think for Hong Kong, you got to live there for 7 years before you can get like
interesting.
Yeah.
Even if you're born there, you have to...
I think so. I think for like,
Okay. Anyway, so you were in Miami for a bit and then helping SWIRE open up a bunch of spots. How long was that for?
I worked with them. That entire time was 7 years in total.
Oh, gotcha.
So it's not it wasn't Cafe Gray for 7 years.
You were with the SWIRE Group.
With SWIRE Group for 7 years. I did skip a little part here. I did go back to, after about 2.5, 3 years of Cafe Gray, I did go back to work with Rochat. Uh-huh. They were doing a transition of the restaurant. Benoit Violet was taking over. This is around 2012. I went in. I went to be the sous chef at the restaurant, and I had issues with my visa. I wasn't able to get it. I was at a point where I wasn't sure if I was going to just continue trying to get this visa. And, I was in great contact with Chef Gray, and he was like, listen, we're looking to potentially do another restaurant. Would you be interested in coming back? So that's what kind of brought me back to Hong Kong.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool. And then eventually you ended up in Singapore. How did that happen?
So all in all, this was around 2017, and I was planning on moving back to America. It was a long time out of home, and at that time I had 2 children, and I was thinking it might be a good time to move back to America. And I got a call from one of the guys in C'est La Vie Singapore, and he's like, we're looking for a chef. So, I looked it up. I'm like, at that point, I've never been to C'est La Vie. I knew about it, but I never, didn't really know. So I went out there, spent a few days, met with the team over there, and I was like, okay, I can't say no to this.
So maybe just give a little 50,000 foot overview. What is C'est La Vie?
All right. So it was a really good fit for me because it is high-end Asian restaurant, but kind of eclectic Asian. It wasn't straight Asian, you know. C'est La Vie Singapore is located on the top floor of the Marina Bay Sands Hotel, right at the edge of that boat. It's a beautiful restaurant with an incredible view. It's big. It does, you know, quite a lot of covers per night. So, you know, for me, it was going to be a challenge from being able to execute high-end food, doing the type of numbers that they were doing in that location. I thought it was an incredible challenge for me. I love the fact that it was Asian because being there for so long, I really geared myself towards Asian food. I loved it. I love cooking Asian food. While I was working at Cafe Gray and these other restaurants, on my days off, I spent a lot of time doing stages. You know, I went to work with David Thompson at Nam in Bangkok. I went to Japan. I went to Vietnam. Worked sometime with Michael Bao. I don't know if you know Michael Bao from New York. Do you know? Michael Bao used to work in New York.
Where in Vietnam are you?
Nha Trang.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. Every single time I got a chance to have a few days off, I would go to Thailand. I would go to, you know, all these different locations just to gain knowledge on different Asian food. And I felt like the whole time I was there, I was thinking, I don't know how long I'm going to be here. I'm going to suck it up as much as I can. I'm going to learn as much as I can about Thai food, about Vietnamese food, about, you know, all these different cuisines. And then I started to incorporate it into the food at Cafe Gray. Yeah. And Chef Gray was open to it. He was like, hey, Joe, you know, he's like, what do you got there? And he used to like, you know, he used to make fun of me. He's like, what do you got? Poondang? Like, what the fuck is poondang? And I was like, oh, chef, trust me, it's going to make it really crispy. And I don't know if anybody knows what that is, but I remember he used to always like fuck with me with that. He's like, what are you doing with this? And I was like, all right, just let me see. All right. This is
what
good.
Did you do with it?
Oh, poondang.
Yeah. It's a good name.
It's a good name. Probably even saying it wrong, but it's like this like limestone that you put it in a jar, you fill it up with water, and you use that water on top. It's like, so it helps with making things crispy.
Yeah.
You know?
In what? Like in batters or?
Yeah, in batters.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I learned a lot of little techniques that people weren't doing with Western cooking.
I'm just imagining Kunz.
He used to break my balls. Like, I would come back from being in Thailand for 3 days with a bunch of ingredients, and he'd be like, what the fuck are you doing?
That's awesome. So the only thing I remember hearing about C'est La Vie was that they have this, like the most expensive tasting menu in the world.
Oh, that was before I went there. They had an event where it was like, I think they sold the dinner for $1 million. You had to take a helicopter to land on, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was $2 million.
Maybe you're right. Actually, it was $2 million.
They would fly you there and they would put you up, and it was just, you know, like the whole menu was like some experience, but it was like $2 million or something.
Yeah, it was a $2 million meal.
This podcast is brought to you by Meez, the culinary operating system for food professionals. As a chef and restaurant owner for the past 20 years, I was frustrated that the only technology that we had in the kitchen was financial or inventory software. Those are important, but they don't address the actual process of cooking, training, collaboration, and consistent execution. So I decided if it didn't exist, I'd do my best to get it built. So the current and next generation of culinary pros have a digital tool dedicated to their craft. If you're a chef, mixologist, operator, or generally if you manage recipes intended for professional kitchens, Meez is built just for you. Organize, share, prep, and scale your recipes like never before, and get laser-accurate food cost and nutrition analysis faster than you could imagine. Learn more at www.getmeez.com.
I mean, that location I can't think of a better location in Asia or the world. Like, I mean, it's beautiful. And when you're up there at C'est La Vie and you look outside, I mean, you see this, it's incredible. You see the Kallang River, and then, you know, the F1 track is, you know, right in front of the building. I mean, it's such a iconic location. It really is. I ended up being the group executive chef for the company.
There's a couple C'est La Vies.
There's
right?
a bunch, and I opened a lot of them. When I arrived, they had Hong Kong, Bangkok, and Saint-Tropez. During my tenure there, I opened Sri Lanka, Kuala Lumpur, Taipei, Tokyo,
so
Dubai, Shanghai. I think that's it. There's quite a lot.
That's nuts. What's the company behind it?
It's El Catterton now. Used to be LVMH.
Wow. El Catterton butter?
Yeah. But it was LVMH when I started.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't realize El Catterton got into overseas.
Yeah.
I mean, Singapore must have been such good food.
Oh yeah, what a great city.
Any like memorable meals there or like hawkers?
I can go on for another hour.
I mean, tell me some, because I'm like, I've never been to Singapore.
So I'll tell you a little bit about it. Like, I mean, what's really cool about Singapore, and especially during that time, like I had a third child. In Singapore. So 2 were born in Hong Kong. And at that time, there were probably like 4, something like that, 4 or 5. And then 1 was born in Singapore. It was just such a great lifestyle. I had an apartment that was pretty close to the restaurant. So every day to go to work, I would take my bike or my scooter along the Kallang River on the track that, people, the F1 track, going into work. And there's, hawker stands all over the place, all over Singapore. So I would take my son if I was, early in the morning, go get kaya toast and,
What's that?
Kaya toast. Oh man, that was another thing that I used to do with Chef Gray as well. He loves kaya toast. Kaya is a coconut spread. Okay, it's a coconut spread. Like we have peanut butter, they have like kaya. It's a coconut spread. Okay,
is it just coconut or is it seasoned with things?
Yeah, it's sweet. It's like a sweet with pandan. Sometimes but there's different types of kaya, but normally it's it's pandan and coconut. And when you eat it, the way it's like traditionally served is like grilled bread with kaya and butter.
Sounds so good.
All right, and then you dip it in like a half cooked egg. It's like very like pretty much raw, but it's not raw. It's just like cooked for a few minutes, and then let it sit. So when you crack it, it still has the white around the outside of the yolk, but it's raw. Yeah, you crack right into it and it's raw, and you serve it with dark soy sauce.
Wow, so it's sweet. So the spread is sweet, but everything else is savory.
Salty. So it's served with like you put a little dark soy sauce inside and a little white pepper. And you take the kaya, dip it inside.
That sounds so good. Can you get kaya here?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, I'm sure you can probably get good quality kaya like from a jar. Yeah, for sure, especially in New York.
Yeah,
but good kaya toast? No, I haven't had it anywhere here.
What kind of bread do you use?
They use like this. It's almost like a white bread, but not really. I don't know how to explain it. It's but they toast it over charcoal. Like if you get a good one, toast it over charcoal.
Like a meaty pan kind of thing, or like a meaty pan, or like a
kind of
Pullman or something.
Yeah.
But soft? Is it like a soft bread?
Soft, but it's grilled.
Yeah.
So it's a little crispy, and then you just dip it inside, and then you eat it, and then kopi susu or kopio, kopi. See, these are all things that you probably wouldn't know unless you lived in Singapore or in Asia and then those areas. So like coffee culture over there is incredible as well. Like the local coffee, I love it.
Yeah,
like kopi is coffee, and then like kopi C and all these things are like how you want your coffee served. Yeah. So if you like here, you say like light and sweet or something like that. Yeah. It's the same thing, but in a different.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And is it similar to like Southeast Asia where you have like sweetened condensed milk and things like that?
Yeah. Exactly.
That's cool. Yeah. I love the Vietnamese coffee. I remember sitting in cafes in Vietnam. I love it. Like it's almost like like pour over. So
Yeah.
You had to have a lot of chili crab.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, chili crab and stingray, barbecue stingray. I mean,
that sounds good.
Chicken feed. I mean, all that stuff. I love it.
So when are you going to open a Singapore restaurant?
I would love to do that. I mean, it's funny because I'm doing, Italian food here.
Yeah. We'll talk about that, I promise.
Yeah, I know. But like the funny thing is about like my career and my entire path. It's just been like started off really heavily French. Yeah. I am Italian in my background, Greek and Italian. Yeah. So Italian food is kind of always been part of my life.
You're just like a mutt, man.
I'm a mutt. I know.
You're Greek.
And my kids are Greek, Italian, and Indonesian.
He's Greek and Italian with an Indonesian wife and lived all over Asia and France. And,
I know. It's funny. It's funny how that happens.
So, I mean, like, do you think you'll do some sort of Southeast Asian or Singapore? Yeah.
I have to.
You have to, right?
That's my thing.
Once those flavors like get in you, like, it's just,
I love it.
I mean, I always have in my freezer macroot, which I think you can't say kaffir lime anymore, but
why can't you say kaffir lime?
So,
wait, what do you mean?
Andrew Friedman, if you're listening, so apparently, and I did read a little bit about this, so I want to make sure I'm sensitive to it. But kaffir is a derogatory term used. The derivative is from South Africa, but apparently the kaffir is actually a derogatory term for the people. Oh. And
I didn't know that.
I didn't either. So Macroot. That's what I'm saying from now on.
Oh.
But I always keep the leaves in my freezer. Always. First of all, just for cocktails, they're really good. But like, and lemongrass and things like that. But like, and like turmeric because it freezes really well.
Yeah.
But like those flavors, man. Like I always keep banana leaves in my freezer.
Yeah.
And there's just nothing like.
I know.
You know,
it's
like
the one
sugar, salt, acid, heat. You know, and those.
I gotta say, it's the one thing that we really like struggle with. Like since we moved back to America quite recently, like me and my wife, it's just we go to the Asian market, try to buy whatever we can, but it's not like.
What do you have, like H Mart around here?
Yeah, by my but where I live, there is a spot called Asian Market, and it's really good. It's like really good, but it's not what we're used to. Living in Singapore, I was just walk down the street, and I'm like. I'm buying all these incredible products, and like we miss stuff like mangosteens that I can't
calamansi,
and if I do find it, I'm paying.
Yeah,
we're paying for it.
Yeah,
and over there, it's like I'm getting a great product for
Yeah, I always tell people like try to find frozen if you're gonna for some of those things like calamansi. Right? Barlin makes a really good calamansi puree or a perfect puree. I'm not sure. They probably both do. Same thing with a lot of those. If you find fresh, probably. I mean, there's a couple farms in California that grow a bunch of like citrus and so they grow like, and I think Maryland too. But for the most part, if you find them, probably not going to be.
I know.
You got to get it frozen.
I struggle with pomelo.
Yeah,
I struggle with pomelo.
It's also so freaking good.
And mangoes. I mean, mangoes are great here. Mangoes are incredible.
Yeah, and also there's so many different varieties.
So many different varieties from Thailand, from Philippines, and I mean, it's tough. It's tough. I mean, especially like my wife is Indonesian, so we have even for her, we're so many of these fruits and vegetables is just part of our repertoire for such a long time.
Yeah,
they're now coming back. It's just
so I was out in San Diego a couple weeks ago for this conference. I met this woman Riri who's got this Indonesian restaurant there.
Oh yeah.
She shipped over a rice hut from Indonesia and put it in her backyard.
Yeah.
And her and her husband run this restaurant that's like, it's really, first of all, it's beautiful. And they grow all their own things there. So they, in their yard, it's like in this like, suburban community.
Yeah.
You have this like rice hut.
Yeah.
And then they're growing like pineapples and kefir and like everything you can think of there, like bananas and things, and it's all on the menu in this beautiful rice hut that they shipped over, and the reservation is like a year out because there's only 6 seats.
Oh my god, I gotta look this up.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I would love to check it out.
And they're sweethearts. I'll put in the show notes more of the info about it, but I didn't know a lot about the Indonesian cuisine. Like there's like this golden rice I think that was like really cool. But anyways,
that's another cuisine that's I think it's not really explored the way I'm surprised it's not. I mean, it's so good. It's another place I did a lot of stages in. And I went out there and I learned how to cook a lot of local dishes and stuff that I also introduced to the repertoire that I was doing it.
Are there any ingredients that like you're trying to make sure you can source here for?
Oh my God, I have a list. I mean, the thing is right now I'm doing Italian food. And, there's quite a lot of incredible products that we're able to use here. But I'm sure when the time comes and I'm, doing an Asian restaurant and Asian ingredients, I'm gonna need some support there.
Yeah. Well, why don't we talk about Boschetto? Because we're here. We're in Montclair, New Jersey. Why did you come back to open this place?
So, funny story actually. When I moved to Hong Kong, I met Rob Spina, who's my partner here.
Mm-hmm.
Rob had a bunch of restaurants in Hong Kong: Posto Pubblico, Linguini Fini, Stonella, and him and his team. I just became really close friends with the chef, him, his partners and stuff. And Rob and I always spoke about we should open a restaurant one day together. We became like close friends.
Yeah. Is he
He's from
here?
New Jersey. Yeah. He's from New Jersey. I'm from New Jersey. We just kept in touch. He ended up moving back to America. He's, doing his thing. And, a few years later, I ended up moving back to America. And we're like, all right, you want to do it? Should we do it? So he had this idea for Boschetto. He explained it to me. We, in the beginning, I was a little bit like, I was a little unsure of what his vision was. It was, I got to be honest with you, I wasn't too sure of what we wanted to turn this into. And, we kept working on it little by little. It evolved into what we were able to create. And I think it's quite unique.
Tell me about the concept. I mean, it seems, you walk in, it's a beautiful open space, lots of glass, very white walls, white floor. And then, obviously order at the counter, but like maybe a little origin, like what's the concept?
Yeah, it's different from anything I've ever done. It's different from anything. And it's like, it's very casual vibe, but at the same time, very elevated. We want people to feel like they can come in any time of the day. They could be dressed up or they don't have to be dressed up. They come to the counter, order what they want. They sit down. We bring it out to them. They want to order more food. They can order more food. It's almost like this. We wanted to create this very, very
like casual. Right?
It's hard to explain. Like
when I see it, I like the menu is obviously like very traditional, not like red sauce Italian by any means, but like a lot of things that are
Allegrisha. It's like
like a lot of things that are somewhat familiar if at least the maybe level 1 and level 2 of Italian cuisine. But you can walk up to the register and order. And you sit down. I'm assuming like if you want more, server comes up. It's like hey, and you refill your drinks, things like that.
Exactly.
But it feels like. Yeah, the kind of place that you can plan to go to on a Friday night, or you can say, "I'm hungry. I'm gonna get a bowl of pasta and pop in."
And then
I mean, there's like sparkling wine on the counter.
Then they come in and they order the food, and then it's like, all right, we focus the majority of our team is in the kitchen. This is because there's not too many waiters out here. I mean, there's no waiters. You order your food and we have a bunch of people that are able to, serve the food and help out the guests, but it's not like people coming around taking your order. So in that respect, we're able to really focus on the food, having a little bit extra staff, making sure that everything is perfect. We're buying, great ingredients, and there's, it's also very simple.
Yeah.
The matriciana, for example, it's the best guanciale I can get. I try to, maybe 15 different guanciales. And right now I'm really happy with what I'm using, but if I find a better one, I'll use it. It's really just figuring out what the best products are.
Finding a good guanciale is tough. Usually they're like over-cured.
Yeah.
They're like a little bit too hard.
When you're cooking it, is it still remain that little
texture,
juice? Or is it going to be dry and salty? And, so
I have to imagine I think we were talking about this, like your version of simple. It reminds me of like when Marcus Glocker is talking about how simple Koloman is. Okay, it's simple. But you have a pretty small kitchen. It's crazy how much you pump out of there. But it looks like I spied a little bit in there. Using incredible ingredients. Bianco di Napoli tomatoes are there. I see the Caputo 00. But it definitely seems like you're doing some tricks to manage being in a small kitchen. Like I saw like the 1 kilo bags of Caputo instead of like the big bags. I'm guessing it's just easier to store and portion that way. Right?
No, we're using the big ones as well. But what we do is we have delivery every day. And that's why I'm like it's a very, very tight operation because we have no space. We finish up a night, the shelves are empty. The next morning, the shelves are full. Which is great because we have no choice but to rotate every day. The fridge becomes full, the fridge, becomes empty. And it's like, it's a very, very, very tight operation due to our space, but it's working. It's working really well.
But you make pizzas too, right?
Yeah.
So I imagine they have to sit at least 24 hours, the dough, right?
Actually our dough is a 48-hour process.
So that takes some space.
So we do a poolish, and then we do a bulk ferment, and then we make our dough. I mean, it's a process, but, it's something that we have to just work with our space. I mean, half of our walk-in box is like dedicated to pizza. And the other half is,
that's great. And is the idea that you want to open more of these?
Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah, for sure.
When did you guys open?
Maybe 2 weeks ago. About 2 weeks ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's quite new.
I know it was recent.
But we kind of went through a very long soft opening, and we did that on purpose. We came into the space. And what's funny is that we came into the space with a menu and an idea for the restaurant, and the original idea was pizza, elevated pizza.
Yep.
And then as we started creating dishes and we were getting more products in, I was like, it became an Italian restaurant almost, It became an Italian restaurant, more of an Italian restaurant than a pizza spot, which was our original idea.
What I like about it is that it's beautiful in here, but it also definitely feels approachable.
Yeah.
And so you're probably going to get people in here that might not know what a amatriciana is, or if you have like, a la guitar or something on the menu, they're gonna be like, oh, that's interesting. And you start to teach people about this cuisine that they wouldn't have,
exactly.
Typically they might have gone to a spot that's casual and gotten lasagna, and
bolognese,
bolognese, and exactly. And then here your menu is like, you're getting a little bit regional. And I mean, by the way, are you trying to focus on different regions, or is just
not necessarily? Yeah. And what's great is like our team is really well trained when it comes to like the knowledge of these dishes, because nobody knows not nobody, but a lot of guests are not coming to the restaurant knowing what vitello tonato is. Yeah. That's part of the experience. Come in, what is this? What are these different things? We're doing it like, we're making a panuzzi, which is nobody, again, not a lot of people know what panuzzi is, but it's a sandwich that we make with pizza dough. Mm-hmm. So the guest comes to a restaurant and they're like, we have a couple of panuzzi on the menu. So, I'll have this. We take the dough, throw it in the oven, bake it. So every single sandwich
get fresh bread.
That's fresh bread.
It's awesome. Yeah.
It's awesome. And people come in like, really? And they try it in the bread. I mean, the sandwich it's a winner.
I think people underestimate like how helpful it can be to have like pizza dough on your menu.
I know.
I just think of like my kid. I have a 4-year-old son named Stone, who doesn't eat much at all. Yeah. And he barely eats bread. Yeah. But we bought the electric uni. Yeah. Which is sick, by the way. Yeah. Like doesn't heat up the house, gets to 850 like in like 20 minutes.
Yeah, I want to get one of those.
And so he likes making the dough with me. And the only way he'll eat bread now is when he doesn't call it pizza, he calls it pita. Yeah. And so we'll just like roll it out and he wants to see it bake and then he eats it. And my wife and I every time I'm like, why don't we just eat bread every night like this? So now we just like always have pizza dough around. Yeah. And so when we want bread, we just like throw a dough in the oven and it's fresh every time. It's delicious. And that's such a good idea for sandwiches, by the way.
Oh, it's insane. It's great.
Because you also like have no waste.
No waste. We also make gnocco frito.
Oh, nice.
Which is like, the fried. Yeah. So, the dough is important. And I think we have a solid dough now. Like, we did a lot of R&D on how we wanted to make our dough. And
is it a Neapolitan style or is it more New York style? Or
I would say it's almost like a hybrid in a way. I'm using 00 flours. I'm
100% 00.
Yeah, 100% 00. And I'm using a deck oven, so it's like you're not supposed to do that, right? Yeah.
I mean,
who wrote the rule on that? But listen, it's really good.
What temp are you cooking them
at? It's about 600, 625. Yeah. And so it's a long process. It's not a high. It takes about 8 minutes to cook it. It's not nothing like a Neapolitan, but they're small. So again, right? When we were opening this restaurant, we were thinking about doing an 18-inch pizza. Yeah. And then we started working on the menu, thinking about the space. I'm like, how are we going to serve an 18-inch pizza? Nobody's going to order the octopus that's on the menu, the pomodoro salad that we made that's on the menu. Like, I want people to come here, have a pizza, order a couple appetizers, order a couple, pastas. Yeah. We even have a steak now. We just launched on the menu. Yeah. It's working. This idea of small pizza, some Yeah.
I've been seeing this pop up a lot lately that I've actually never even eaten it, but like cooking like mussels and stuff in pizza dough.
Oh, in the pizza dough.
Yeah,
I saw that as well.
You just seal it and then you just bake the mussels in that.
I guess it makes sense. I've never tried that before though, but I think it would make sense because, obviously you get all the juices that are coming out.
I don't know how it doesn't get soggy, but like, I guess if you just put it on the tray and then you just like slide it off, but it looks really good. I'm curious, obviously you're cooking Italian food that's probably as far from Kunz as we could,
I know,
or maybe even Danielle. Yeah. But like, I'm curious. There's still, I'm sure, so much impact of those two chefs and Rochat on what you do. But like, what are some like the lasting impacts that Chef Kunz and Danielle and maybe Rochat have had?
Oh my God! I mean, listen. I think I cook Italian food like I think if Chef Gray were to open it, I'm sure obviously he would do much better because Chef Gray. But with the inspirations like I did with Chef Gray and Danielle, especially, I have tomato fondue. I'm sure tomato fondue. Mm-hmm. These are things that are part of my repertoire. I don't cook like a traditional Italian chef because I'm not a traditional Italian chef. Yeah. And Rob Spina, my partner here, who's opened quite a lot of Italian restaurants, that's his thing, is Italian food. Yeah. And in a way, it's my thing because I'm Italian and I grew up on in that cuisine. But I never worked it in a professional environment, you know, like this. So, you know, knowing that, I think that that's why I'm just naturally, you know, it's a unique cuisine just because the inspirations that I have are not really like that.
Yeah.
Like I used to make this black olive mousse d'oil with Daniel, and you know, we're using something similar to that in the restaurant, you know, tomato fondue from, you know, Chef Gray. All little bits and pieces kind of make their way into the menu.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I feel like it's funny. Like every chef that I work for, there's obviously so much of the food that you take with you and the recipes.
Yep.
I'm curious what you think about this. Like with Kunz, for me, like the biggest takeaway is like the level of excellence in stepping into anything that you do.
Yeah.
And like the expectation that everything has to be thought through and that every little tiny thing matters.
Yeah.
And there was just it just like oozed out of him.
Yep.
Like, you know, he tries to make a cafe and, you know, we have like these pristine trays with racks and towels under them and Himalayan sea salt things coming out. Like that's his style of
a cafe.
Of a fajita, you know, it's this beautiful, like he can't not do that. I find that like, the biggest takeaway for me from Chef Kunz was approaching things with this level of excellence that it doesn't matter what it is, like you can sort of just raise the bar to have this sort of there's no other way to describe it than this like level of excellence that seems so cliche, but it's like it's just so adamant in everything that he did.
Perfect example, the spoon.
Yeah.
The perfect example is the spoon. You know, he knew exactly what we were missing in a kitchen. This kind of perfect shape, perfect amount of, volume, the perfect hand feel, the perfect metal, you know, the steel, I mean. You know, it was like he would take things and think about it and think, how could we make this better? Like, you know, we developed these trays in Hong Kong. I'm not sure if you guys ever used this in New York or if this was a Hong Kong thing, but we had these trays made for like past hors d'oeuvres where spoons would sit on this kind of wood base. Mm-hmm. Did you guys do that in New York?
We had some pretty dope trays, but I don't know if it's particularly that one. But
this was made for like past hors d'oeuvres. I mean, we had a piece. It was like a wood piece that came up. It had these little grooves that fit perfectly for small spoons to sit inside. So that when they walked, they could just take it off of this wood base and they were like kind of floating. Yeah. And it was like, we had a bunch of stuff made like that. Yeah. All custom. Like, I remember he made this steamer. He made a steamer where we had his plancha in the restaurant and we steamed a lot of fish. We steamed a lot of stuff in the restaurant. And we got to a point where we're like, you know, we need a bigger steamer. And those round traditional ones didn't really make sense for our operation. And we went to a guy in Hong Kong that was like a metal, you know, he was able to make stuff for us, and he designed this like rectangle steamer that we set on top of the plancha with these different layers.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah,
it was incredible.
And you know, now we're just sort of like sharing some memories of Kunz, which is cool. But I remember like the Himalayan sea salt blocks. He had these beautiful, like perfect rectangle Himalayan sea salt blocks. There's just a block of Himalayan sea salt, and he would do these kaffir shrimp, with the marinade, and you have the kaffir lime, the curry, and
kaffir lime oil.
You know, like you think of like a flaming fajita, and it's like, but he has a silver platter, with a perfect, beautiful like towel underneath, and then a beautiful silver like rack over that. And then, you know, you're heating up this Himalayan sea salt block, and then it goes out to the table with this like
it's sizzling,
aromatic.
I know.
I'm like, fuck, man, that is so.
It's insane.
It was delicious, and you know, it was like, what would it be like to do a flaming fajita if there was just a step function level of excellence more than what it is, and that was Kunz.
Yeah.
Was there anything like that with I just think of, other chefs that we work for. What about with Daniel? Was there anything like,
absolutely,
any takeaway?
I mean, I think they all, listen, the reason they are where they are is because of their sense of uniqueness and techniques and stuff. And, you know, and Daniel did some great stuff as well. But I would say, like, for me, it was, I think, working with chefs like Daniel and Chef Gray and Rochat, and, all these great chefs, they always have these level of execution that that they want to achieve. That's always like 10 steps higher than the average mindset. And that always creates confliction, I think. Not always, but it could create a conflict between, what we're trying to do as chefs and maybe the management or the front of house or something. And that's why it's really important to be on a team that embraces it and not pushes it.
Yeah.
I think that we were very lucky in Hong Kong. We had a great team that were, embracing it. Like, I mean, our team was like, yeah, let's make this steamer that Chef Gray is. Most people would be like, what are you trying to do? Why don't we just get a steamer? No. I got this great idea because it fits perfectly. He had something in his mind that made sense. I got it because I was his, his guy, and I understood what he was going for.
Yeah.
And I was in the kitchen with him every day. But did everybody else understand? And they embraced it, and they let it, they let it happen, and we were able to create some great things.
There's another thing about Gray that I think was he was really good at figuring out how to get things executed. Because I think that you bring up a good point. Like, I think I was talking about this with maybe Marcus or someone else. It doesn't matter how innovative you are, or how like incredible of a dish you create. If you can't execute it in service every day, it's never going to happen.
I know.
Unless you can charge like $1,000 a dish, $1,000 a meal, which not many people can.
Yep.
It's just not gonna. It doesn't matter, And that's part of how like we our sort of innovation curve like slows in any industry. Food being one of them. It's just like restaurants have dollars, dollars and cents of a bottom line. It's hard to operate, and you can only do so much. If you had unlimited capital and unlimited space, your menu here might be different.
Exactly. Exactly.
But we don't have a choice. That this is you got to sort of operate within those confines. Yeah. And the great chefs figure out how to like execute.
You got to figure out consistency. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Floyd, we just did a dinner for Floyd at the Cookies for Kids charity a couple weeks ago. Yeah. So I've been thinking a lot about him, and the big takeaway with Floyd as a chef was like he was just such a technician. Mm-hmm. Like everything was like everything was a technique, and either just like iterating on a new version of a technique of something that was already difficult, or just kind of pushing this view of like you have to be a technician. And he was, I think, by far the best technician I've ever seen in the kitchen. And he, obviously he worked for Kunz as well, so he has a flavor thing. But I think that's the cool thing about when you work for all these chefs and then you come and open a place like Boschetto. Mm-hmm. There's so much more that goes into the food that you created than just like the recipes you learned or like the techniques. Is like like the people that you worked with.
Yeah, absolutely. There's things that we always again, like taking away from each restaurant. It's like how we're setting up our station. How we're setting up our towel. How we wear our towel. How we wear our apron. We go outside into the dining room. Like these are just things that are implanted into me because of my time with these chefs and these people that I've worked into, that I'm going to hopefully instill into the cooks that work with me now.
It's so interesting, that element of cooking at that level that sticks with you. That I have a software company now, and like I'll bring some of my team to events or something. If we'll do like a food event, and you realize how much, how big of a gap there is in some of these things that seem innocuous, but like we were at an event last week, and one of the team members just left their apron on the table, scrunched up.
Oh,
and I'm like, I really get mad because I'm like, you don't know, but I'm like, and so I had this conversation with the person because about that and something else of like, I want you to think about everything that you're doing as if you're running a 3-star Michelin restaurant, and just ask yourself, would that be okay? And that's not just the things like an apron. And I think this carries over to any business that anybody has. It doesn't matter if you're in the kitchen or not. Like the people that you serve. Yeah. When you walk into a 11 Madison Park, like they know your name. Yeah. They thought about like, was it raining outside? Do I want to have a towel waiting for you? Or is it going to be raining when you leave and I have an umbrella waiting for you? And I already know the things that you like. And I've thought about those things ahead of time, and make you feel special. And that's there's a level of that in everything that comes into like a really high level execution food at restaurants like that you've run that carries over to so many different industries.
Absolutely.
And that's the cool thing about when you hire people to work for you is you can instill that in them.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. I mean, this is a small Italian restaurant with pizza, pasta. And I'm like, you know, these techniques and these things that were instilled into me, I'm doing it here. You know, I don't care if I'm serving whatever I'm serving. It's going to be the same the way I cook, you know, everything is the same approach. It's just different food, maybe more simple. But at the end of the day, the approach is always the same.
And I think that's what's so important.
Yeah.
Because we do need restaurants like this. These are really important. You can't just have 3-star Michelin restaurants. You have to have everything in between. But we are our actions. So if you open this restaurant and you behave differently and you think differently and you don't have that level of excellence, then none of it really matters. You can't compartmentalize. You can't be that in the 3-star and not be that in this. Not be that if you have a QSR restaurant. It's either that you are or you aren't.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's what's so cool about people like you opening restaurants like Boschetto is that you're going to have that. You're going to have that level of excellence no matter what. No matter if there's like tablecloths, no matter if there's, you know, a tasting menu or if you can walk up and order the counter, that it's just going to be that same fucking thing no matter what. You know, that's what I love.
Yeah, absolutely.
So any other like projects in the works?
I'm in the midst of doing a project in Allendale, New Jersey, actually. It's going to be called Allendale Social. It's a very different type of restaurant. It's more of a restaurant. We have, a full bar. It's about 50 seats, small restaurant. It's going to be really great. Eclectic menu, new American style. We should be open by late November.
Oh, wow. So it's in the works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have a team already?
Sort of. Not really. I'm still hiring. I've had some interviews and stuff already with some people. We have to put our team together. You know, it's difficult because for me, I've been overseas for 14 years. So I don't have a list of chefs that I know anymore. You know, I have my cousin who's the chef in New York. And what's great about him is he's helping me so much when it comes to products.
Yeah.
Like, you know, chef, you know, what should I use for this? Who should I talk to? And he helps me a lot with that. But when it comes to staffing, it's tough.
Staffing's a...
Yeah.
So if you're listening and you live in Jersey, hit up Joey.
Yeah, hit me up. I need some help.
My guess is you'll probably have a bunch of other projects too. I mean, for everything that you've done, like it seems like you're probably going to, you know, have to have an empire restaurant. Well, this was awesome, man.
Yeah. Thank you.
I forgot, by the way. We have a Kunz spoon for you because we give one to everybody. Okay. But it's getting shipped here. I did bring you a Mies bag.
Awesome.
So when you go to the market, you can you can carry that around.
Appreciate it.
But this was awesome, man. Yeah. I'm stoked we got to meet in person. Finally.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so great chatting with you.
And this is my first time in Montclair, New Jersey. So.
Oh, really? Hang out. Yeah.
Thanks for tuning into the Mies podcast. The music from the show is a remix of the song Art Mirror by an old friend, hip-hop artist, Fresh Daily. For show notes and more, visit getmees.com/podcast. That's GETMEEZ.com/podcast. If you enjoyed the show, I'd love it if you can share it with fellow entrepreneurs and culinary pros and give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen to your podcasts. Keep innovating. Don't settle. Make today a little bit better than yesterday. And remember, it's impossible for us to learn what we think we already know. See you next time.